What's happening, everybody? James Hancock here to discuss the new movie by Paul Verhoeven called Elle. And if you've not heard of Elle, you're going to be hearing a lot about it in the weeks and months to come because it is awesome. I mean, this is a movie that a lot of people are dwelling on how they perceive it to be controversial. But I feel like what people should really be dwelling on is that this is an incredibly well directed, well written, and extraordinarily well performed movie. Paul Verhoeven, who's well into his 70s, is back at the top of his game. And Isabelle Huppert, who's been doing extraordinary work since the 70s, this might be her best performance. I mean, I love her in Heaven's Gate. I love her in Hal Hartley's Amateur. I really like her in Michael Haneke's The Piano Teacher. I'm never quite sure I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. But Elle is something quite new, and it gives zero fucks about people's hesitance to watch movies that have any rough edges. But for me, it's a strange thing about whether or not movies are controversial. Like for me, the ultimate controversy should be an entire industry devoted to movies that have no rough edges and that are totally bland and innocuous and that would never possibly upset anyone or force them to question any of their assumptions or look at things from a different angle. Like that's the true controversy. A movie like Elle should be celebrated for its originality and for its boldness of vision. It's just outstanding. Now, for years I've been talking about how much I love Paul Verhoeven's movies. I mean, I grew up watching his movies. I first encountered him with RoboCop back in the 80s, which I still feel like is one of the best action movies slash social satires ever made. It's R-rated. It's just balls to the wall action. It skewers kind of the yuppie corporate culture of the 80s, and it was just killer. And then he followed it up with movies like Total Recall, Basic Instinct, Showgirls, and Hollow Man. So I knew his American movies pretty damn well. And that was kind of where I left it for a very, very long time. It's part of the fact that I knew he had a career in the Netherlands prior to coming to America. But I've been preparing for a new episode of Wrong Reel, which we're recording on Monday, which is all about Elle. So I figured time to do my homework and see his European body of work. And I had no idea just how much of like a poser and a charlatan I've been all these years claiming I like Paul Verhoeven, because I had no idea that his career in Europe is just as compelling as his career in Hollywood, and it's absolutely worth studying and enjoying. I mean, Turkish Delight, one of the most erotic, provocative movies I've ever seen. Soldier of Orange, just dynamite World War II movie from the perspective of being a citizen on the ground in the Netherlands prior to the onset of the war through its conclusion. You got Spetters, which is just this outrageous like biker movie about three guys who all fall in love with the same mature, very attractive, and ultimately kind of like unattainable woman. You've got The Fourth Man, which is this really, really creepy, like bisexual murder mystery that I feel like is up there with the best of like De Palma and Hitchcock. I mean, it's incredible. And then after his Hollywood career, his output has been significantly diminished, unfortunately. But he came roaring out of the gate again when he returned to Europe with Black Book, which is a perfect companion piece to Soldier of Orange because it's yet another look at World War II. And, obviously now we have Elle. There's one final movie on his list that I've not seen, a movie called Tricked, which is a crowd-funded, low-budget movie. It's not even a feature film. I think it's only like 34 minutes long. But basically, it's a film that came out in 2012, and it includes a documentary of the making of. I still need to see that. But looking at Paul Verhoeven's career he started in TV, but looking at his feature films from the early 70s through today, for me, there's no denying that he is one of the most interesting filmmakers of the last 40, 50 years. I think what I like most about him is that his politics are incredibly cryptic. I feel like we live in an era where a lot of storytellers have a very, very clear, transparent political agenda. Whether it's left, right, center, whatever that agenda might be, they tend to have it kind of right out in front of their story, and it can be a brick wall for people who don't agree with those points of view. But with Paul Verhoeven, he's totally unafraid to offer contradictory themes or ideas or opposing intellectual notions all at once, which can be very confusing to people who like their movies to come in bite-sized chunks of entertainment where they can kind of process it and digest it really quickly. I feel like Elle is a movie that you could debate and discuss and analyze and rewatch for a very, very long time. I mean, without going too much into spoilers, because I don't want to ruin it. Essentially, it's a movie that starts with a absolutely traumatizing rape scene, and then it deals with the aftermath. And Isabelle Huppert is just, she plays such a cool, confident, badass character with this crazy history. I mean, her father was a serial killer and like involved her in the crimes a little bit when she was a little girl. But she also works at this gaming company where they create these incredibly kind of like violent, like tentacle porn games. She's a girl who's like, she's incredibly self-reliant. She lives on her own. She has a son who is a complete waste and just a shameless failure. And her mother is kind of in the same category. And it's basically just about her just fucking people up in terms of her control over her own life compared to their lack of control in theirs throughout the entire movie. And she's got all these men in her life. She's got her ex-husband. She's got her her boyfriend, who's secretly, not secretly, but is the husband of her best friend and business partner. And then she has this rapist who she's maintaining a relationship with. He's sending her messages through her computer and on her phone. And then they revisit each other, but she, in the meantime, is learning how to use mace and how to use 44 magnums. It's riveting to watch. I mean, I see a lot of movies, and very rarely do I find myself just completely absorbed and not checking my watch or not taking bathroom breaks or not thinking, oh, what's going on my Twitter account, blah, blah, blah. This movie, I was completely, utterly just like hooked by the eyeballs, couldn't take my eyes off it because there was not a conventional, predictable beat and the entire narrative. Every time you think you know where this movie's going, you're going to be completely, totally wrong. Which should come as no surprise because Paul Verhoeven's been making these kind of movies for decades. I mean, anyone who thinks they know where certain movies are going, he's gonna always gonna go right when you think he's going left, and he's gonna go left when you think he's going right. And it's why his movies are so exciting and why they keep being rediscovered by subsequent generations. I mean, like his film like Starship Troopers, it seems like it's more popular now than ever. I mean, I caught it in the theater in the 90s when it came out. I even took my little brother and sister to see it, and we enjoyed it. But now it's got this weird thing where it's a movie that's both pro-fascist and anti-fascist all at once. Because on one hand, you see just how nightmarish a fascist society can be, but on the other hand, you can see when you're invaded by an alien race that might exterminate humanity as we know it, maybe you want a few fascists on your side to go into battle to fight these motherfuckers. And then, I mean, I could go on and on and on, but what I like is that Paul Verhoeven's politics, you can't sum them up in a few quick words. I feel like we live in an era where everybody's very polarized, like, I am on this team or I'm on this team, and the other team sucks and my team's awesome. And it's a pretty foolish way to look at politics, because I feel like Paul Verhoeven has an incredibly nuanced, complex relationship to politics, and I think it comes from his upbringing. He was a child during World War II, and this is when the Netherlands were being bombed like crazy and then occupied. And his two movies, Soldier of Orange and Black Book, really explored just how complicated things got on the ground politically, because you had a lot of people from the Netherlands who were pro-Nazi, and you had a lot of people that were not. You had some people that were actively resisting and fighting the Nazis from the underground, whereas those who just kind of wanted to keep their mouths shut and kind of not draw any negative attention to themselves. You see in his movies the aftermath of what the Dutch did to their own people, for those people that they felt like were Nazi sympathizers. However, there were plenty of people who were playing both sides and essentially acting as spies, and it's like, well, they might have done horrible things on the surface, but perhaps it was serving a different agenda. And I just love how his two World War II movies are probably the most interesting films about World War II that I've seen for films that were made in Europe. Just because they're not like American war films tend to be very jingoistic, rah rah rah, like propaganda, or the flip side, why were we there? This was all horrible. What a mistake. And most American war films tend to fall into one of those two categories. Verhoeven's World War II films absolutely refuse to. So I highly recommend everybody hunt down Elle when it comes to their theater. I mean, it's opening in New York this weekend. I don't know how slow the rollout's going to be to other theaters, but it's definitely one of the best movies I've seen this year, if not the best. And there's something very, very encouraging and heartening about seeing a filmmaker in advanced years. I mean, I'm looking at IMDb right now. He was born in 1938, so the guy is 78 years old, and he just made one of the best films of his career that I would rank up there with any film of his that you care to mention. So hope you enjoyed this review. Hope you go see Elle. Hope you watch Paul Verhoeven's movies, because going back from Turkish Delight through today, there's so many gems well worth sinking your teeth into. So please subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this. Give me a like if you feel like it, or give me a dislike if you don't feel like it. Give me a shout on Twitter at Colbrex if you want to talk about Paul Verhoeven's movies. And stay tuned for my podcast, Wrong Reel, which is on iTunes, because we're going to be doing a podcast about Elle and Paul Verhoeven's entire career on Monday, and that should be up on Monday night. So thank you so much for watching. Have an awesome weekend, and I will talk to y'all in the near future.